Welcome to Colorado.
It's the jungle, baby.
Land of the legal weed. And home to America's latest billion-dollar industry, marijuana.
This is part of history because what did the end of alcohol prohibition mean to that generation? Dynasties, right?
I took everything I had, 401s, IRAs, and dropped it into this.
I feel like we're in a once-in-a-lifetime position right now. Every state is looking at this.
The demand really is that much higher than the supply.
We grew close to 1,000% last year.
This year, we're going to do 12 million.
I'm talking all chips in.
I hate to fail.
We want to be the Costco of marijuana.
In this episode, you'll enter the hottest part of the legal marijuana world, edibles. Trip Kieber is building an empire on the unquenchable hunger and thirst for these new products.
These are made by Dixie, the same company making the truffles there, and this is their elixir.
But it's all new, and serious problems emerge.
We don't have access to capital. We can't go out and buy a $200,000 piece of equipment.
And I can't describe to you the fear that I've been carrying with me for the last 3 weeks.
The government intervenes.
And we passed that rule in emergency fashion.
It would be the end of the edible industry.
When you go from 500 bottles a month down to 0, I mean, that's quite a bit of profit loss right there.
This regulatory tsunami can drown the new industry. Can Tripp and his colleagues survive? It's marijuana, and it's all legal. There are 285 days of sunshine in Colorado, and this year has been especially bright. Legal weed has come out of the shadows. Millions of happy customers are proving that the naysayers were wrong. The sky hasn't fallen, and the tax man is raking in the money. Still, there's a lot less smoking than you might imagine, because nearly half of the legally purchased weed is being eaten.
We've never seen anything like this. Look at that. Medicated infused chocolate.
These aren't your Aunt Bessie's pot brownies. These are high-octane edibles, coming in all shapes and sizes. Brownies, cookies, chocolate bars, truffles, gummy bears. You can even drink the stuff.
You can try lots of different kinds of edibles. We have chocolates, we have drinks.
Edibles work slower, hit harder, and last longer. Old news to medical marijuana patients. But when edibles flooded the recreational market, millions of new customers started to gobble them up. Now the demand is so high, manufacturers can't make them fast enough. It's a boom market, and a handful of companies are dominating the shelves. The foremost is Dixie Brands with their line of pot sodas, Dixie Elixirs. The man in charge has worked in everything from luxury RV resorts to nightclubs.
My name is Trip Kieber, and I'm CEO of Dixie Brands Incorporated.
This is a 30,000 square foot, what we hope to be a state-of-the-art production facility. As you're going to see, we're currently under production.
I've been a serial entrepreneur for most of my adult professional life.
We call this our $5 million mousetrap.
This industry, albeit incredibly challenging, has really been exciting, and it's really required me to dig deep into places that I've never been before and face them, and it's exciting. So in some ways, maybe it is a rebirth.
This will be really where we plot and plan for Dixie's global expansion.
Never have I been presented an opportunity where you could potentially be part of history. I think people will look back, maybe my children or my daughter's children, and say, wow, you know, this was the end of prohibition of marijuana. That 80 plus years of reefer madness is not going to be something easy to break.
Colorado's new laws have created nearly $1 billion industry in the first year in one state. Edibles, also known as marijuana-infused products, are doing hundreds of millions of dollars in sales.
Some Tootsie Roll or maybe truffles.
Some of our production teams are actually manufacturing, looks like, our chocolate truffles, which won a High Times Cannabis Cup Award 2 years ago. We just came off of that. We start with the key ingredient, which is raw plant material, cannabis.
The raw plant material used in edibles is not usually the flower or bud that is smoked. It's the rest of the plant, the leaves and stems that used to be thrown away. Every part of the cannabis plant is used.
We go ahead and render it into a cannabinoid oil. This is actually an Apex supercritical CO2 machine. This is really the extraction platform in which we're generating all of that cannabinoid oil, or what we call internally again as the mother's milk. Then we test it to determine strength and strain.
We just grossly underestimated the demand from the adult use consumer, and specifically the infused products. I mean, it's slightly embarrassing because for better or worse, I'm maybe identified as a thought leader, and this just knocked me over the side of the head. We sold more in a 90-minute period in January than we did in the entire month of November of 2013. This is serving the adult use market, right? The recreational marijuana consumer.
I can get the next person in line.
This will house, just call it 500 plants. The wheels of cannabis do turn slow, though, when you're waiting on permits both by the state and by the city.
I've always had a high tolerance for risk. Obviously, this business is wrought with risk. As you say, rise to the top of the mile-high city, it's also a long way to fall.
Tripp's growing empire is proof that some Americans like to eat and drink their weed.
Okay, so how many did you want?
Marijuana opponents aren't gone, but they have been relegated to the shadows, waiting for another moment to be relevant. They won't have to wait long.
Do you guys have any questions, or can I help you with anything?
I'm just looking for some kind of edible for my dad, like something.
With it being no smoking anywhere in Denver that's not a private area, edibles have become our bigger sellers. I mean, if you haven't done edibles before, we still just recommend starting very small. We want to be safe and sorry. You can always add more. You can't take them away. But they're all right there if you want to take a look at them.
Pulitzer Prize-winning New York Times columnist Maureen Dowd got really high. She was doing some research in Denver after Colorado's legalization of marijuana, and Dowd had a really bad trip, like super bad. Dowd wrote it all up in a recent column.
Dowd had nibbled the end of a marijuana chocolate bar, and when nothing happened, she nibbled some more. It took about an hour before something did happen. She recalls, as my paranoia deepened, I became convinced I had died, and no one was telling me.
We're really trying to make sure that people start on the low end, and we'd much rather have people not feel the effects or feel very little of an effect than to have too much. What we're realizing with the recreational cannabis consumer is that some of them have very low tolerances. I'm Bob Esquino. I'm one of the partners here at Medically Correct, and we do a brand of chocolate bars called Incredibles. I am not a drug dealer. I am a legal cannabis supplier. When I read the Maureen Dowd article, I was a bit shocked. She was a person who came in to do a story. She is educated. She overconsumed an edible. It was uncomfortable, but she woke up the next day after a scary situation and decided to write what she wrote. If she would have had this experience with a bottle of wine, would she have written about it?
Ms. Dowd declined to be interviewed for our story. The Times column brought a harsh spotlight on an industry-wide problem. Colorado's edibles were initially dosed for medical patients, marijuana regulars. When the newcomers and tourists flooded in, many overconsumed.
You know, I know people are concerned. One of the things that I'm frustrated with is people thinking that the industry doesn't care. We do care. Yeah, there is opposition. One of the most vocal groups out is Smart Colorado.
We have an awful lot of people here in the state that are just out to make money in this business and make this industry as big as possible. But we feel that there has not been due consideration to what this is going to do to our communities and particularly our kids.
Those are probably some of the most uneducated comments I've ever heard, if those are really being said. Because the reality is, I have 2 children. I am concerned about kids having access to cannabis. And if you want to take cannabis out of the hands of children, put it in the hands of legal, licensed companies. It is harder for children to get alcohol because they cannot just walk into a liquor store and buy it. We just had a sting operation for the dispensaries in Colorado. You know how many dispensaries sold to underage people? 0.
We're seeing kids who've overdosed on marijuana.
They were unconscious, unresponsive, and in critical condition. Thank you, idiot.
Marijuana is still illegal, according to the feds, so none of the edibles companies has banking support. Most of them are small, self-financed startups, like Julie Dooley, an organic baker who is applying her healthy approach to cannabis desserts.
Hi, Julie. How you doing? Good to see you. My name is Julie Dooley. I am the co-creator and sole owner of Julie's Baked Goods in Denver, Colorado. I'm here at Legal Today Dispensary and Grow to pick up some fabulous organically grown trim that they would like turned into some organic edibles. Let's see strawberry cob. Oh my God, it's gorgeous. Yeah. Look at this, beautiful. We exclusively make healthy, organic, natural food. So it's a granola, a roasted seed mix. We do a candy, my version of candy, which is called the Nutty Bite. I have celiac disease. It basically means I cannot tolerate gluten in any way, shape, or form, even on minute levels. However, I did have some residual symptoms, and what we found helped the best was cannabis. So Amy, tell me, how much longer until this is going to be harvested?
So this is going to be harvested next week. When we harvest, again, we take off all of the extra leaves, then we're going to let the buds dry, and then we'll create the byproduct for you.
Great.
A beautiful plant in here right now. Look at the purple kush back there.
Oh my gosh, let's go see it. Purple kush! A lot of people don't want to smoke. It's obvious, and it only lasts 2 hours. An edible is very discreet, and it can last up to 12 hours. So in 3 weeks, I will come back with the products. And here's Courtney.
We look forward to it. Courtney's got your...
Here's the trim. Ooh. I like what I'm seeing is a lot of crystals on the bottom. So jazzed about that. It's got its Smith's tag. It's ready to go to Julie's kitchen.
Got your manifest sign.
Awesome, I've got a pen right here. When you eat it, you will have a pain relief that you would never get from smoking. If you eat it, you would have a low anxiety effect that you wouldn't get from smoking. And now we know a little bit about the libido, and we know that definitely eating it can make people amorous, whereas smoking it is not usually affiliated with that at all.
My name is Louis Koski. I am the director of the Colorado Marijuana Enforcement Division.
Things are different in Colorado. The MED licenses and regulates marijuana in the state. Think of it as a DMV for weed.
The biggest challenge to this policy is how unique it is. It's really unique around the world. Along with that certainly comes the challenges of being first. When we first started, there were no best practices developed on how you're going to regulate something like this. Marijuana Enforcement, this is Louis. From a public perspective, one of the biggest concerns everyone has is adolescents and youth.
You are clear for takeoff down runway 420.
But if the high-rolling marijuana business has hit a bump, it's edibles.
It's very different from smoking. It takes a lot longer through the body.
Some first-time adult users have said edibles have made them paranoid and hallucinatory. Worse still, edibles have gotten into the hands of small children.
This is crazy, though, because if you have this in your house and your kid got hold of this stuff...
Dr. Richard Zane runs the emergency room in one of Denver's largest hospitals. He only gets involved when things go wrong.
We are seeing all manner of illness related to marijuana, which could be marijuana intoxication. We're seeing kids who've overdosed on marijuana, and most of this is related to the edibles. The illnesses related to edibles are usually due to having a lot of THC all at the same time and not knowing what you're getting into. When you smoke marijuana, the onset of action is somewhere around 15 or 20 minutes, and when you eat it, it can be anywhere from half an hour to 5 hours. The single biggest danger with edibles is children. The way in which this has been legalized has not considered what the impact is on our children. I think the edible companies are probably making a lot of money on this. How do I think they're doing on monitoring this? I think they're doing a horrible job. I think that they aren't paying attention to what they're supposed to be paying attention. I don't think that their primary objective is protecting the public.
Julie Dooley, a mother of 3, is also concerned about protecting the public. She sees the real threat coming from the black market.
Check this out. A 17-year-old high school student in Richmond, California has been arrested for selling pot leaf cookies during lunch period yesterday. 2 kids went to the hospital. 3 others were queasy. They were unconscious, unresponsive, and in critical condition. Thank you, idiot. My God.
I know.
What are we supposed to do with kids like this? What was their parents doing? How did they not know that their kid was upstairs making pot brownies?
Pot brownies.
See, we cannot regulate for that. There's no regulation in the world that's going to stop that. That's bad parenting.
Yep. I don't know what to say to all that.
The pot baron's enemy is the black market, and they fear it. It's unregulated, untaxed, dangerous, and gives their products a bad name. To date, the fates have been kind to legal weed. But the sunny days the edibles industry has been enjoying are about to give way. Storm clouds are rolling in over the Rockies. The first thunderclap came from what the coroner's report called an accidental suicide.
A 19-year-old boy from the Congo who was a student in Wyoming came over, ate 1 cookie, and started hallucinating and ended up jumping over a balcony. The only thing he had in his system was marijuana from that 1 cookie.
There's an old saying that lightning doesn't strike the same place twice. But 1 month after this edible-related death, news of a murder also linked to edibles struck the city. It started with a 911 call.
RP versus her husband has been smoking marijuana. Advised they do keep a handgun in the house.
Christine Kirk described her husband as hallucinating and holding a gun on her in front of her 3 children. She was shot and killed while on the call. Her husband, Richard Kirk, had reportedly just eaten a marijuana candy before she picked up the phone. If the anti-marijuana forces were looking for an opportunity to take down the edibles industry, this was it. The opposition jumps into action.
The state now is trying to do something about it.
It would be the end of the edible industry.
Indecisions will cost my company everything.
The storm over legal marijuana in Colorado has arrived. Government authorities have linked 2 deaths to edible products. The opposition awakes and demands the government take action.
They're extremely potent, they're on the shelves, and yes, the state now is trying to do something about it.
The government launches a $2 million education campaign, warning kids not to be marijuana lab rats. They pass emergency rules requiring edibles to be sold in smaller portions, more clearly marked, and delivered in newly designed child-proof packaging. In an industry working without the support of bank loans, these new costs are serious roadblocks.
The rules, which consisted of approximately 35 pages of, in some cases, what I would describe as knee-jerk reactions, that was debilitating.
We put some additional requirements on the manufacturers, and we passed that rule in emergency fashion so we could get safer edibles out in the marketplace sooner rather than later.
I wouldn't say that the government is a partner with the industry right now. We battle every day on new information that comes out and new rules that possibly could be made. 10 milligrams is a serving that if you sell one 10 milligram serving size alone, then it just has to be in an opaque package.
It's a 25 milligram bar. People can eat that in one serving. It's got a $1.50 clip on it, which is now almost the most expensive thing in this bar, and it's trash. It's $1 million a year for packaging. Man, I can't believe I just said that out loud.
I don't know how much it's going to cost us yet. I know that we're going to have to change the labels on everything.
The packaging will completely change everything we do.
If it went through, Susan, I mean, it would be the end of the edible industry.
There wasn't comprehensive agreement on whether or not we should just simply limit manufacturers to 10 milligram edibles. There was some opposing views on whether or not that was the right thing to do. So what we did is we allowed for manufacturers to still create 100 milligram edibles. The only thing was that they had to be able to score that product and make it really clear where the different serving sizes existed within that product, and it had to be made easily separable at the point that it was scored.
More troubles for the edibles industry. While the new rules about dosage and packaging were wreaking havoc, the news runs stories on black market attempts to make edibles at home. A regulatory tsunami of new safety rules was just over the horizon, threatening to halt production. The opposition may not be able to shut down the edibles industry, but a barrage of shifting regulations could cause a war of attrition. Dixie is running on oil reserve, unable to create marijuana oil because of new fire department regulations. Their assembly line won't be rolling again until they get a new explosion-proof hood for their extractor.
Cheapest that I found was $25,000 because it's going to have the explosion-proof certifications. The butane guys blowing themselves up. The fire department says we trump every other procedure out there.
This is something we allocated, what, 3 Gs for?
Yeah.
Well,
because the requirement that they're putting us under is silly.
Indecisions will cost my company everything.
So what are we going to do? Because we can't be out of production for 2 weeks.
And I can't describe to you the fear, the uncertainty, the doubt that I've been carrying with me for the last 3 weeks.
Clearly, we're going to have to make some decisions if we aren't going to have oil in here next week. Probably not good decisions.
An industry in crisis is an industry united. The Cannabis Business Alliance is like any other industry group. However, marijuana is not like any other industry.
The issues were regulations, and how can we as an industry fight back on these illogical, not practical regulations?
In any other instance, if you leave your firearm out, if you leave your pharmaceuticals out, if you leave your alcohol out, they go to the parent and go, what are you doing? If it's cannabis, they're coming to the manufacturers and saying, you need to protect those people's kids because their parents handled it irresponsibly. All right, we're trying to figure out ways to do that, but at some point, personal responsibility has to fall into the program. We need to go and say, we understand there's a problem. Here's how we think we can make it better.
One Friday a month, we do these burgers and beers. And it's really an opportunity to bring the company together in a social environment. We kind of we shut down early on Friday, around 3 o'clock. If we're going to do more burgers and beer Fridays, we might have to upgrade the grill.
It was our initial purchase. I think
It was the entry-level starter kit.
Yeah,
Make sure that it,
You know, one of the reasons why we do this burgers and beer is because Tripp and I are passionate about showing our gratitude to the employees. If it wasn't for them and kind of the flexibility that they show and the patience they show, we'd never be where we are.
All right, I'm going to follow me to the beer line then.
Part of being an effective boss is showing a calm face in a crisis. Tripp and his partner Chuck are facing a production shutdown.
So, you know, obviously I spoke to Randy last night, and he's freaking out that we are basically done with all the commercial oil. Oil is derived from raw plant material. The extraction process, the state of Colorado, through its various regulatory agencies, precluded us from that ongoing activity because they really wanted to understand what our facility consisted of. What were the appropriate permits? I mean, at one time it was suggested that we're going to have blast-proof windows. I walked through today. It does not appear that we're anywhere close to getting the CO2 rooms up. Where are we?
Yeah. So, I mean, we have a couple issues there. I mean, most of it is getting this construction freaking finished so that we can get the rooms approved, so we can get the machine approved.
Every day that we're not in production, it's costing our companies tens of thousands of dollars. It is an oil crisis.
We're going to be out of production next week, so I met with the production team. We're going to give
furloughing people.
They're going to take a couple days of unpaid vacation.
I was a little ashamed, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, it's these are people that have given. I'm getting emotional, so we're going to stop. We have to have, Monday morning a plan.
Well,
when is the oil done?
I approved. Well, we got a little bit left that we can finish with bottling.
I don't blame the state of Colorado. I don't blame the regulatory agencies because, again, this has never been done for. But, I mean, this is a clear situation where maybe the left hand has no idea what the right hand is doing. I'm talking about these regulatory agencies. And with that, created basically a crisis. No oil, no products, no money. It's been a very precarious few weeks.
For Tripp, the crisis is the stoppage in production. Soon, more regulations could jeopardize the entire industry. The industry fights back.
I'm an adult. I like candy.
It's extremely intimidating.
It's going to drastically change the edibles industry as we know it.
If we don't get this machine turned back on in the next week or 10 days, we'll start to run in a cash deficit.
Compliance. It can drive up costs for any industry, but for marijuana, a startup industry without banking support, the pot barons say the changing rules restrict revenues and halt production, which can lead to ruin. And when you're the kingpin of an edibles empire, you can feel at risk of becoming a government lab rat, stuck in a maze of emergency rules, fire safety regulations, production codes, all while building a state-of-the-art weed factory.
What's up, Juicer? How are you, bud? Well? Good.
Howdy.
It's borderline emotional for me to reflect on not only where we started, but what this facility looked like is surreal. This has never been done before. There's never been a facility to this level of sophistication that has been built to serve a marijuana industry. Oh, it's really nice. I'm just curious to see the progress we're making. When you manufacture at this scale, everything is exponentially larger, profits, but also loss. Oh, baby, I miss my girls.
So they're starting to come along.
My first true plants that I've owned 100%. That's pretty cool.
So we're adding more Moby Dick and Blue Dream back here that'll be put in the cycle here shortly.
Yeah.
This is a Venom OG. It's coming along very nicely.
The facility ultimately has to be given its final certificate of occupancy, what they call the CO. Until we have that last signature, we can't be producing oils, and that subsequently is what's contributing to what I would call, an oil crisis. We are anticipating being out of production for about 5 days. The reality is it's probably going to be closer to 12. Look at this thing.
This is the bottling equipment too.
Does it work? We had the largest month of production and subsequently the largest month of invoicing. That has really done it's decimated our inventory. So if we don't get this machine turned back on in the next week or 10 days, we'll start to run in a cash deficit.
But the show must go on. And this act calls for the announcement of Dixie One, their new low-dose soda.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Trip Kieber. I'm Chief Executive Officer of Dixie Brands. Most recently, in the month of June, we launched Dixie One, which is one product, one dose.
When the only marijuana drinkables are highly potent, like scotch or vodka, Dixie believes the future of cannabis looks more like beer. Then it's off to a charity event.
There he is. How are you? Good to see you. What's going on?
Tonight, we're celebrating a charity that focuses on catastrophic diseases for children. So we're here raising monies tonight on their behalf.
Good to see you.
What's going on?
Well, I'm trying to go incognito, and
You look beautiful tonight.
Yeah,
very, very nice.
How are you?
Good. I was so fortunate to run into Jamie from Euflora. She's just a breath of fresh air. I'm really excited for their success. They're one of our true strategic customers. We have amazing point of sale.
I want to tell you too, Dixie One's doing really well in the store.
That's what they said. It was outpacing the 75s.
I think it's because the weather's hot too. A lot of people are buying the drinks.
Yeah. And you're serving them cold, and
They're ice cold.
Oh my God, perfect.
Yeah, so they're good. People are loving the watermelon.
That's
I
good.
think they're more comfortable buying them because they know they can get the whole thing.
And they're low dose. Yeah, exactly. Well, exactly for that very reason. We've been out of production for almost a week now because of our permits. We finally called. I know the fire chief, and I was like, you have to come down here and get involved because the city's pointing their fingers, and then the fire department. I mean, no one's ever done this before, so it's been slightly challenging.
Well, good. Hope you guys get going too then.
Yeah.
Look,
Good.
nothing else. I'll see you next week.
Absolutely, sweetheart.
All right.
Bye.
Thank
Great
you
to see you as well. Right now, we're shut down with production. I'm ready to pull my hair out, and so obviously incredibly excited, but the same respect, frustrating.
After coming under criticism by government regulatory agencies, the marijuana edibles industry is about to stand up and fire back. Inside the majestic chambers of the Colorado State House is where they join the fight.
Thank you, everybody. We are now going to move on to the next set of rules. That is edible retail marijuana products.
Good morning. My name is Rachel O'Brien. I am an attorney and founding member of Smart Colorado. We formed to protect kids as Amendment 64 is implemented in Colorado.
Good morning. My name is Bob Pasquino. I'm also here to protect the children. And I guess I take offense to the fact that certain people in this room think the edibles companies in this town are not interested in protecting our children. I have 2 teenagers myself.
The marijuana industry decided that marijuana and candy, marijuana and soda, marijuana and all sorts of sweets and snacks that appeal to children go well together.
I'm an adult. I like candy, okay? I have a sweet tooth. This whole thing about candy and sweets only appealing to children is ridiculous, okay? I eat massive amounts of chocolate, all right? I love it. Okay, that's just the way it is. It's not just kids. We're packaging everything for children. Stop it. I'm adult. It's ridiculous.
These rules do not go far enough. The industry is putting marijuana in foods that kids eat by the handful. Marijuana in edible form is dangerous.
As we keep increasing the costs of the manufacturers in the edibles market and those products become more expensive at the store, you're opening the door for people to go back to the black market.
Members of our committee from the medical and research community said that it is impossible to control or predict a consumer's reaction to a marijuana edible.
Just like with any other controlled substance, you will build up a tolerance, and to try to push every edible to being limited to 10 milligrams, it's going to drastically change the edibles industry as we know it.
More regulations followed. A House bill was introduced calling for edibles to be identifiable as containing marijuana, even when outside of their packaging. Tricky when you're making soda.
We're like dead in the water right now because we've been paralyzed by these emergency rules for 2.5 weeks now.
The most extreme translation was, smart moms want a gray blob to be the only option that you have for edible marijuana. If we submit to the emergency rules and make changes that we need to make from a production and product and equipment standpoint, there is the very real potential that House Bill 1366 may change that again.
You're talking probably hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, the packaging on the bottles alone, each time we pull the trigger is, 6+ figures.
The biggest concern that I would have if I were you guys in this scenario is the reading that Smart Colorado and Ashley Kilroy were pushing during the meeting, which is that if a product cannot be practicably marked, it must be banned. They're going to beat that drum. They're going to push that line as far as they can, and they would probably argue that liquids can't be marked.
We're not going to not make elixirs. I mean, it's the flagship product, 50% of our revenue. I respect the attorney's opinions are incredibly important, but they're not gamblers.
Unfortunately, Dixie is pretty much out of everything that we need.
It's a very harsh bill.
This is going to be another headache we're going to have to deal with.
It's a very sad day here at the kitchen.
Startup companies are always fragile. Marijuana startups even more so. There can be great rewards in being first, but the risks are multiplied. What looks like a pothole or a bump in the road can really be a fatal chasm.
My Dixie shelves, as you can see, are really sad right now. I'm out of a lot of the drinks, the Dixie 1. This is where the Dixie 1 normally goes. It's completely wiped out, so kind of out of a lot of stuff for Dixie. Unfortunately, Dixie is pretty much out of everything that we need. Really, Incredibles, unfortunately, I've had a really hard time getting their product. You can see I don't have a lot on the shelves.
Many boxes of Incredibles bars are nearby on the factory shelves, but not up to the new industry's stringent safety standards.
So I came to the kitchen today because we are, for the very first time ever, destroying product and throwing it away. So you want me to bring a hammer, mallet? You want me to bring something? Or found all the rules and regulations and how we are supposed to do it, and it's a very sad day here at the kitchen.
Play some good music
I can safely say with like the Dixie 1, for example, we were selling 500 bottles a month. So when you go from 500 bottles a month down to 0, I mean, that's, quite a bit of profit loss right there.
That right there is probably, how many hundreds of bars do you think that is?
81,000 grams.
81,000 grams.
81,000 grams are...
That's a nice car. My daughter would love that for a car.
I'm anticipating and expecting that come November 1st, when the new rules and regulations go into place again, this is going to be another headache we're going to have to deal with.
Ouch.
They say politics makes strange bedfellows. In April of 2014, the Colorado legislature introduced House Bill 1366.
Bye, guys.
Bye, have an incredible day.
Thank you, I will.
Intended to make edible marijuana products easily identifiable when out of their packages.
What the bill does is it asks us to further regulate and make edibles more recognizable to the general public, so when someone in the general public sees an edible, they know it's an edible.
The ultimate goal of the work group is to come to some sort of conclusion about how they want to mark products, shape, size, color, stamps.
It's a very harsh bill for manufacturers to try and shape, stamp, or color their product.
Packaging and proper labeling is frankly our best bet.
We are concerned about keeping edibles away from people that do not want them and cannot have them.
If we do everything correctly on the front end, if it's labeled properly, if it's in child-resistant packaging, I still come from the standpoint as to why we need to do anything to the product inside. It shouldn't be out of the child-resistant packaging, just like pharmaceuticals or anything else.
1366 passed promptly. Governor John Hickenlooper immediately signed it. He left the details of how the law would be enacted to a work group consisting of industry people and concerned citizens. The pot barons and the naysayers were now on the same panel, working together with the government to protect the public safety. Strange bedfellows indeed.
So to get us started, I wanted to talk just a little bit about 1366.
The data is certainly that safe storage is the most effective communication message available.
My concern really for the packaging, some of these items have to be contained in the refrigerator. They're going to be accessible. So as a parent, you can be as responsible as you want, but really they're not locked like it's difficult to get into a pill bottle or something.
But the new rules actually state that everything has to be child resistant and resealable on the manufacturer side.
Some of us are actually using the identical pill bottle that you would see a Xanax in.
I'm going to jump right to stamping or stenciling. How operable is that?
That's almost impossible for a baked good or a pastry.
Here's an example of just marking it, simply frosting or whatever.
So that's handwritten. That looks like it's hard to do in mass quantities.
Yeah, I know, and I'm sure you could get some sort of, isn't there something called fondant that,
But that's changing your process?
That goes against my mission of my company to force me to put a non-organic ingredient.
Symbols in and of themselves are not necessarily universally understood.
You're adding an ingredient, and that's something that's not part of this.
It should primarily be focused on child-resistant packaging, labeling, education, and products being marked is the last thing on the list. I think part of the problem with the industry is we don't have access to capital. We can't go out and buy a $200,000 piece of equipment. Oreo can do it, sure. Can we do it? No.
The products look the same side by side, and we're trying to distinguish as a guide for parents and teachers and other people to know if their children are using it.
If a child is using cannabis, they're probably not getting it from a dispensary. Any illegal activity with teenagers and purchasing it is coming from the black market. They're not going to follow any of these rules and regulations. You can go to Craigslist and buy 100 milligram edibles for $5. Why would they spend $25 on mine?
We can do all sorts of things to these products, but at the end of the day, teaching parents to have an honest conversation with their kids, teaching parents to keep them not just in the package, but out of sight is so critical.
When did we get a final word? My phone was dead. You sent it to my BlackBerry, but when did this all take place?
Legal marijuana is new for everybody. 2 people died. The opposition yelled foul. The state listened. The industry reacted. Experts were called. The rules were modified. And Dixie finally passed their fire department inspection. The oil crisis was over.
The regulators have been satisfied. The boxes have been checked. And last night, starting at about 9 p.m., we started to manufacture oil.
Someday, the pot barons of the edibles industry will look back on the summer of 2014.
Our Nutty Bite boiling away, and it gets to a certain temperature, and then it'll be poured.
And they'll remember a watershed moment, a time of their personal wealth, social confrontation, and their political crisis. But today is another sunny day in Colorado, and with it comes new opportunity. Julie Dooley will roll out another batch of Nutty Bites and hope that her boutique business survives. Bob Esquino will dig into his pocket and buy new equipment to make smaller and less potent Incredibles bars. And Trip Kieber will continue to chase his empire. His slugfest lasted into the 12th round, but a late-night text message has kept him upright for another day.
When did we get a final word? Because my phone was dead. You sent it to my BlackBerry, but when did this all take place?
This morning.
This morning?
Yeah, came in at 10 o'clock.
Wow.
And we're back into production right now.
Group hug
running and the CO2 extraction.
Jesus, the oil crisis is over. But, you know, listen, we're through the woods. And that note, that text that I got last night was really the beginning of the next chapter. Today, we're going to gather as a team and conduct the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. Who's doing the Ice Bucket Challenge? Hi-yo! It's exciting. It's rewarding to see my team members back. It's exciting to know that we're going to be shipping products as early as Monday. It's exciting to know that we'll be able to begin to chip away at that backlog, which is probably in excess of $500,000. Man, it's the sound of money. That humming. Whoop, whoop. That's cool. Oh my God.
Oh my God. Bob, come watch this. Guess what
What am I watching?
There you go. So I was looking on Facebook and I caught this. Ready? Oh my goodness.
From the roof. Yeah.
White t-shirts for everyone.
All right, white t-shirt contest.
Oh my God.
Guess what?
Guess what?
We have been
got
challenged by Team
Dixie.
Dixie for the ALS Ice Water Challenge.
My name is Trip Kieber, and this is Team Dixie. Today, we will respond to the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. Today, we challenge Medicine Man. Today, we challenge Incredibles.
Tell them what we're doing. We want to thank the crew at Dixie Elixirs for calling us out on the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. I am Bob Esquino. This is the Incredibles team.
Let's do this, guys.
It was a memorable summer, the first summer for legal marijuana. And for the pot barons of the edibles industry, it was the summer they survived.